In this video, we are going to remake the song Type by Future and Let's get into the remake. Type Shit comes from Future and Metro Boomin's collaborative album We Don't Trust You, featuring big artists such as Travis Scott and Playboi Carti on vocals, and Mike Dean and D Rich on production. Now, this remake is unprecedented for me. Unprecedented. I've never spent more than 80 hours on a single remake. This one took me over 400 hours. 400 hours spent dissecting this song down to an inch of its life. But how can you possibly spend that much time on a remake? If you're new to music production, it is crucial you understand this point. At its core, every song is just a collection of sounds, and a music producer is someone who finds those sounds and arranges them into a mix of sounds, known as a mix. And it's my job to uncover what those sounds are. So where do these sounds come from? Modern music producers source their sounds primarily from two different locations. Number one is samples, which are audio clips like the sound of a drum kick playing, or the sound of an instrument one-shot. And the second place producers find their sounds is from VSTs. VSTs are virtual instruments, so for example, a keyboard that I can play directly off my laptop. And so producers will often use samples for their drums and their 808s, and they will use VSTs for their melodic instruments like their pianos, guitars, etc. I say all of this because over the course of remaking this song, I slowly realized that I had none of the exact samples that were used in this song, and none of the exact VSTs. It was basically an impossible remake. So in this video, we're going to be discussing the most challenging part of remaking any song, which is how do you find a sound that you don't have? It's not in your library, it's somewhere in the ether of sounds on the internet. So my sample library has increased from 60,000 samples prior to this remake to now 250,000 samples. And my VST collection has doubled. Needless to say, it was all very expensive, so I am eternally grateful to the sponsor of this video, and I've had to reinvest all earnings from that sponsorship straight back into this remake. To remake any song as accurately as possible, we'll have to purchase a high quality version of the original. So we're gonna head to Quobuzz and purchase a FLAC version of Type Shit. FLAC files are lossless quality, so we're not gonna be losing any level of detail compared to the original song. Let's drag that into the project. Find the tempo first, so click this knob up here and go detect tempo, and we're gonna go between 100 and 200 BPM. Most modern hip hop songs are within that range, and as you can see, FL Studio has detected the tempo to be 145 BPM. Let's set the project to that. Next, we're heading to Lal AI to separate out the vocals from the instrumental, and Lal AI's latest version, Perseus, is the current champ as far as the highest quality stem extraction between vocals and instrumental. Next, we're going to head to FL Studio's native stem extractor and separate out the drums, instruments, and bass. So we're working with these four files. We no longer need the original version, so we have the instrumental, the drums, bass, and instruments. So now we're ready to start the remake, but prepare yourself because this remake was more complex, more technical, more methodical than any other video I've ever done. So if you're just looking for a bit of casual viewing, maybe watch my Dior remake or my God's Plan remake. This video is for if you're serious. Main section, tubular bells. To find the exact tubular bells, let's analyze the original audio more closely. So let's go to the mixer, to the master channel, and open up Ozone 11 Imager to visualize how the sound plays over the stereo field. Isolating the frequencies between 300 and 3000 Hertz because that is where the tubular bells are primarily playing. So watch closely. As you can see, something weird is going on here. There's some sort of structure to the imaging. And so my challenge to you guys is, can you pause this video and tell me in the comments below what you think is going on here? There's two main characteristics, maybe three. I won't tell you what the third one is. If you mention it in the comments below, I'll be very impressed. Number one is the audio plays in mono, which means one channel. You can see this because the audio is coming through as a straight line. Even though it's moving around, the audio is primarily playing as a straight line. Compared to a stereo instrument, as you can see, it spreads out really widely across the stereo field, as opposed to the tubular bells from Type Shit, which play in mono. That's number one. Number two, good job if you got this in the comments below, is panning modulation. So the signal is oscillating back and forth between the left and right channel, which you can hear if you're wearing headphones because you'll hear the audio moving back and forth between your ears. I say all of this because from my experience, producers often choose presets where these effects are already built in. So the sound will already come with these types of effects. So we are on the lookout for a VST that offers mono tubular bell presets and panning modulation effects, which rules out VSTs like Nexus, Flex, Expand 2, and points us in the direction of more modular plugins like Omnisphere, Analog Lab V, Contact. So now we have some sort of direction, but here's the catch. I knew that this sound was going to be very hard to find because tubular bells are inharmonic instruments. So with harmonic instruments like pianos, guitars, etc., their overtones follow the harmonic series, which is a series of integer ratios generated above the fundamental. It's naturally occurring, so you see this in basically all instruments. Whereas with tubular bells, because because of the way that the metal in tubular bells vibrates, their upper frequencies are essentially unpredictable, so no two tubular bell presets are going to look the same. And so after reviewing all of my VSTs, none of the presets inside matched with the spectral fingerprint of the original song. This is because they're so unique. So not good. I was stuck. And when I get stuck, I conduct a thorough background check. And here's what I found. The tubular bells were produced by D-Rich. D-Rich is based in Atlanta. Atlanta is the birthplace of plug music. So I downloaded the notorious plug VST Purity, and I scoured the plugin until I landed on the Digi Tubular preset. And this preset was a breakthrough for me. It was the first bell preset I had found that matched the spectral distribution of the original typeshit bell. When you turn off the effects, it plays in mono. And in the effects, you can enable auto pan, which creates panning modulation. So that's it, right? We found the preset. Ooh, not quite. You see, this is where things get a little bit weird. This tubular bell in Purity has white noise baked into the sound source. And when I saw that, I had this realization. Tubular bells have such unique spectral fingerprints. So the way that they map across the frequency spectrum is very unique between one tubular bell to another. But it was a perfect match, which can only mean one thing. This preset, the Digi-Tubular preset, and the tubular bell in typeshit both come from the same place, the same sound source. And Purity has kept its sound sources a well-hidden secret ever since it came out in 2005. But in the user manual, it states that Purity primarily sources hardware workstations and sound modules. And many samples actually originate from there. So I went to my browser and I searched bell. This yielded thousands of results. And I compared every single one of them. And get this, only one bell matched the original song, BWB Direct Wave 2, bell number 2. And it plays in mono with panning modulation. I knew I was close now. I could feel it. So I reached out to BWB directly and I asked him, where did the sound come from? Please tell me. He tells me he modified a sound font named Tubular Bell. This led me to musicalartifacts.com, the largest collection of sound fonts available anywhere on the internet. I looked for Tubular Bell sound fonts and I analyzed every single one of them. Then I actually found it. It is the Korg AG10, and the Tubular Bell patch inside matched perfectly. And here's the cherry on top. The Korg AG10 is a sound module. So Purity sampled the Korg AG10 to create the Digi Tubular preset. And they might have added white noise to hide this. I don't know if they got permission from Korg when they sampled their sound modules, but now we know the origin, but I wasn't done yet. Korg has a collection of VSTs, virtual instruments, that sample their sound modules. And so I reviewed their entire software collection, painstakingly poring over every single bell preset, and I found the exact tubular bell. Go to the Korg Trident Extreme. Go to the browser and let's search tubular. Here you will find the EXP tubular bells, a mono tubular bell preset that matches the spectral fingerprint of the original song. Then we're hopping into the effects and turning on stereo tremolo. Going to the filter and we're bringing up the low pass filter to 30. Bring up the Q. Then we're going to the oscillator settings and we're turning on start offset, which gets rid of the transient. Adding it to the mixer, warping this preset into the exact sound. This is the key. Control Q to quantize, Control A, and we're just going to drag these out because they need to overlap. Also, there's actually a second version of this where this note doesn't play. That comes in at the beginning. Exactly. Let's get into the 808. And at this point, I'd like to thank the sponsor of this video, Unison, for their incredible support throughout this entire remake process. And they haven't given me a script or anything, so I'm just going to riff here and tell you my actual thoughts. So I've used their new plugin 808 machine to perfectly replicate the 808 from typeshit. And I bet you've never seen a plugin quite like this because it can allow you to generate infinite unique 808s. So we have different styles to choose from. We have dirty, lo-fi, unique, aggressive, and clean. And I mean, that feature alone would justify me getting this plugin, but on top of that, the 808s that you generate are highly customizable. So we can give this 808 a sharp decay, or you can make it play continuously by maxing out the sustain. If you don't like using kicks in your beats, you can add kick to the 808, making the transient more punchy. Add drive to make your 808 more aggressive. as well as tone shaping to emphasize the presence of the 808 in the upper or lower frequencies. And if you're using 808 slides, you can very precisely time how long you want the sliding to go for. As for this remake, I chose Type Shit because Unison has an expansion pack, 50 famous 808s. These are 808s inspired by famous hip-hop records, and I worked directly with Unison's sound design team in developing this 808. And if we export this pattern into the playlist, as you can see, the waveforms match perfectly. Thanks to Unison for sponsoring this video, and you can check out 808 Machine in the description below with a 50% discount. It's actually quite late in the evening, and so I'm going to be putting on some blue light glasses because this setup is like staring into the sun. Where were we? Ah, yes. The 808. Let's talk about the 808 sound design. This is what made it particularly challenging. The 808 has an enormous pitch bend of 3 semitones. It comes down to this weird pitch of halfway between D sharp and E. And so there were only a couple of candidates that actually aligned with the waveforms, such as the Shorty Red 808 and the D Rich 808. That sample actually was used in this song, but only in the reverse sections. It's very interesting. So if we reverse this 808, as you can see, it lines up perfectly, but it looks like D Rich used a different version for the 808 the rest of the time. So what is the 808? Once again, we're going to have to analyze the sample more closely. This time we're using parametric EQ2, and we're going to watch how the 808 plays. I want you to focus on the sub to low mid frequencies. You'll notice a distinct shift in timbre. So at the beginning of the sample, you can see frequencies coming in the bass to low mid. Then towards the end, you can see they fade away, meaning it was created by combining 2 separate 808 samples. Number 1, no surprise here, the Spins 808. Producers just can't help but use the Spins 808 in all of their songs, which you can see aligns with the waveforms and the spectral characteristics. And that transitions to a sub bass. Layering these 2 samples together and creating a fade, which makes one single unified sound, one 808. And we're adding a pitch bend of 3/4 of a semitone. Very strange number, 3/4 of a semitone. So 75 cents to both samples. It lowers as the sample plays. Now I tweaked this over and over again until on the 76th try, we absolutely nailed it. Look at that. Look at those waveforms. Boom. Low pass filter. Next, here's a really cool trick that I've never seen anyone else do, but this is a trade secret. Watch this, ready? So this is before. Kind of bland, right? Compared to the original song, you can hear the 808 knocks. It's like, hello. The original 808 has this punch to it, this emphasis on the transient. You want to emphasize the 808, have it knock in the mix. Go to the miscellaneous functions, and we're going to be boosting up the volume. For this remake, I did 172. As you can see, it is clipping in the mix. Then we're heading to the envelope settings and make this exact envelope. So we're going to be bringing the attack down to 0 and bring the hold down to 1%. This way, at the very beginning of the sample, for 1% of the sample playing, it's going to be playing at 100% at max volume. And we want this to very quickly come down to a normal level. So we're also going to make the decay time 1% as well. And we can just leave the sustain where it is. See how it shoots down? That's because of this 1% hold that we have. So we've added this punch to the sound, but we don't want it dominating the mix, because right now it's going to sound like this. It's just exploding through. Add Fruity Soft Clipper to the master. It's just too potent and powerful. So we also need to add Fruity Soft Clipper to the 808 itself. So this is before and after. Massive difference. In the previous section, breaking down the 808, I've been showing you this bass audio, which comes at the very end of the song. But at all other points, the audio looks like this. It looks weird and warped. And here's what's happening. There is actually a second bass layer, an auxiliary bass, a bass that props up the main layer. You can spot this layer playing on its own during the instrumental breaks in Playboi Carti's verse. In all my remakes, I've never seen a song have 2 separate bass layers playing simultaneously, because these are hip-hop songs. You want the bass to be clean and obvious. But fortunately, this song has Mike Dean on the mixing, and I am not here to question Mike Dean. He knows what he's doing. I'm just here to remake the song. Mike Dean most likely added this second bass layer on a Moog synth. He is a tried and true Moog user. To remake this perfectly, we're opening up the Mini V4, which is based on the Mini Moog, creating this sub using a triangle oscillator, and we're turning on glide so that way the notes slide up and down. So if we record this into Edison, as you can see, now the waveforms possess the same weirdness of the original song. Into the drums, and like I said in the intro, coming into this remake, I had none of the original sounds from this song, which I only realized from poring over my sample collection only to come up dry. So I went back to D Rich because the drums and type shit came from him. You'll hear this very clearly if you listen to other songs produced by D Rich.
Dope boy, 95 Air Max song. Talk to him. That's some new type shit.
Which is interesting, right? Because Metro Boomin was credited as the main producer of Type Shit. But honestly, I'm not 100% sure what Metro did here, because when you look closely, you'll start to notice that every part of this beat was either produced by D Rich or Mike Dean, the so-called additional production. Now, I might be wrong, but if I'm right, I think that Dean and Rich deserve a lot more credit than what they're getting here. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, but either way, the drums most certainly came from D Rich. So I went looking for D Rich drum kits, and I have my common sources such as BWB and Splice. While I often walk away with a successful drum kit purchase, in this instance, I was victim to multiple scams. Scam number one is fake packs. So I spent 150 USD on some D Rich drum kits, including one kit that claimed to have over 17 gigabytes of D Rich samples. And a pack that huge would have probably something like 50,000 samples, so I couldn't resist. And when I downloaded this kit, I realized it was probably closer to 17 samples in total. And mysteriously, after I made this purchase using my company email, which has my name on it, the producer immediately took these kits off of BeatStars. And number two is ripped kits. So I spent another 100 USD on some supposed D Rich drum kits once again, and to my disappointment, I realized that all of the samples inside were what I like to call stripped and ripped. Which means they were low quality ripped samples from other D Rich songs. After all these shenanigans, I finally found a reputable source, Playboi Shorty, a popular beat maker from Illinois, pack Gucci Mane in 06, which was filled to the brim with D Rich samples that were perfect for this remake. So shout out to the boy himself, Playboi Shorty, and here's a link to his beat store. And he decided to help out massively by recreating the drum line using these authentic D Rich samples. Number one is the Shorty Red Hat. Compared to the original, plays a basic two-step pattern, so go fill each two steps, and we're just removing the last one from every 2 bars. Open hat is the D Rich Long. And to recreate this exactly, let's bring this into the project. We'll have to bring up the start offset. So I'll set. So let's drag up the sample start until it lines up. Here we go. As you can see, the waveforms are lining up perfectly. And this plays every 2 bars. Control Q to quantize, and let's go up here and choose half step, just like both of these, and drag these out just by 1 half step. So it's playing slightly off time with the closed hat. Next we have the snare and clap. We're using the maintain clap, as well as the D Rich generic snare. These are the exact samples compared to the original song. For the exact vox, we have the Polo chant. This is the exact version because we don't need to do anything to this sound. Then we have this perk sound, like a short hat. This sample is the Bankroll Fresh. By the way, all of these samples are coming from Playboi Shorty's Gucci Mane in 06 drum kit. Compare it to the original. Once again, Control Q, and let's go to half step and bring this one out by 1 half step. As you can see, it was done in the original song. Perfect. And finally, we have a triangle sound, a triangle perk. And as you can see, we are bringing down the sample start because this is before. So bring down the sample start to 25%. There are points where the instrumental plays in reverse. To replicate that, we're going to be switching out the 808 for the original D Rich 808. So we're exporting this section. Onto the bell pad. So at this point, I'm not going to be explaining the deep dive I went in to try and locate these sounds. As I said, I didn't have any of the original sounds when I began this remake. So the VSTs you're seeing, I didn't have prior to this remake. I had to locate these through a brutal process. Anyway, this preset is the Havinal's Bell preset from Roland's JV1080. Starting off with this pattern. Control Q to quantize, and let's max out the volume. From here, we are emphasizing these notes. And so we're going to be dragging these out to double their length. And then these notes are going to be a little bit more subtle. So we're going to bring that down to, let's go 70%. I will still compare it to the original song. To identify that this is the exact preset, it's a little bit hard to do it looking at the entire instrument's audio. As you can see, there's a lot going on here, but what we can do is open up Fruity Stereo Shaper, and we're going to isolate the side channel. So before and after. And the easiest spot to see it is in these very high frequencies in the treble. It's got a very distinct spectral fingerprint. So for example here. Very distinguishable. Next we have the high synth, and at this point in the remake I realized that D-Rich absolutely loves to use the Triton Extreme, as he proceeds to use it for every single preset. So we have the massive killer pad here. As you can see, we're playing it up very high. Control Q to quantize, Control B to duplicate, and remove. Control A to select all of them, double click on one of them, and let's just max out the velocity. Converting this channel to mono, so drag this little knob in the middle to 100% merged, which means it's merging the left and right channel into one. Onto the final sound for the main section, once again from D-Rich, and this time from Roland's Xenology. We are opening up the Biggie Brass preset, and you can't see me because I realized I had the wrong preset in editing. Here we are, exact preset, Biggie Brass. Adding RC20 retro color for some distortion, reverb, high pass filter, some tone shaping, and increased width awareness. And that's the main section. Onto the interlude, and the interlude was crucial to the development of the track, and it was also a complete cinematic switch up to the more ethereal vibe of Travis Scott. And with that ethereal vibe comes more involvement from Mike Dean through his use of analog synths and unique melodies. But D-Rich was still involved here, so we're going to be opening up the Triton Extreme once again using the choir preset, which is the identical choir preset used in the interlude. And once again, to confirm that the choir was the exact preset that was used, we're going to enable Fruity Stereo Shaper using the side preset, so we're isolating the side audio. This is before. Now we can isolate it. Matches perfectly. Onto the last preset that D-Rich used on this song. This is the bright tuba preset from, you guessed it, the Triton Extreme, and it plays almost the same chord progression. I'll show you the difference. And here's the difference. We have these two chords, E minor and D major, and these actually repeat over the upper inversions. As you can see, these are actually the same chords, but we're just lifting them up to the next inversion, so it gives this sort of rising feeling. Now we are handing it over to Mike Dean, who added this sub bass. It's a nice preset. As you can hear, it plays in stereo. We're making this preset using some triangle oscillators, and we are detuning it, so you can bring up the detune to 20%. And once again, no effects necessary, so onto the next preset. Digital Brass. All right, now it's getting damn serious. Mike Dean added multiple digital brass layers with different types of cutoff envelopes. So a cutoff envelope means there is a low pass filter on this preset and it comes up and down. He likely did this on a Juno, so we're opening up the Juno 106 and I've modified the PD Poly Brass Pad preset. This preset has a big attack on the envelope, so it really slowly comes up and then slowly comes down with the decay. And we have different versions of this preset with different cutoff envelopes. Second one. As well as different panning. So this one's panned to the left and one to the right. Together they make this pattern. And we're adding the high synth back in. That is the synth brass. Now we have the final preset, the synth arpeggiator. Look at this. Coming from the Micro Korg, another VST that I didn't have in this remake until now. So open it up and switch to electronica. Turning off the arpeggiator. Max out the decay on the filter as well as bring up the release. Slightly adjusting the tune, so we're going to bring up oscillator 2 to 9 and the total tuning down to -9. And the tuning here was very deliberate compared to the original song, so I'm going to isolate a note. So you can see the separation between the oscillators here, which I've found to be 9 cents apart. So 100 cents is a semitone, so 9 cents is very minor. And this preset plays the most chaotic melody I've ever seen. It doesn't follow any clear structure, and each note is slightly different in length, which means that Mike Dean likely played this in himself, and the only way to accurately replicate this melody is by isolating the original song at every point, at every new note. And there are 331 notes to isolate. So the process looks like this. I open up an EQ, and at every point, I'm looking at these frequencies and identifying which note was being played. And so it starts off with E7 and moves down to C6. And this just goes on and on and on. And that process took me multiple days. Adding in the drums. Switching back to the sub that you saw back in the intro. And that is everything. So this is the final result. So Shazam is picking up my instrumental remake of Type Shit as Type Shit by another artist named Bossolini. And it's particularly strange because then I tried to play the original instrumental and it picked up Type Shit by Bossolini as well. A little bit puzzled there. If Shazam's picking up both my instrumental and the actual instrumental as the same song, then that's good enough for me. This was by far the most complex remake I've ever done, but I love a challenge and I loved every minute of it. It's forced me to grow as a producer and I am feeling dangerous. Look out for future videos because they're coming. Talk to you guys later.